Well, I mean, I've never told anyone this before, um, but you guys on podcast are going to find out. I've been a member of federations and associations for as long as I've been in this industry, and some of them connected to registration. I've left recently. Yeah, I've deliberately left the forums, the formats. I'm paying my membership because it's a talking shop. All right, there is no progress, and we are distracting. This is my personal point as a business coach.
Distraction, yeah.
We are
Yeah.
we are distracting. No, I'm not saying they don't have a role, and that if we would head in that direction, but it's very flimsy, very feeble. But what I see, you see, the thing I have to deal with every day. I don't have to. I love dealing with it. The thing I have to deal with every day is salon owners who have got a responsibility to themselves, their families, and their teams. All right. And when we look at industry and we blame regulatory bodies or the government or a
Yeah.
federation or anything like that, we're distracted from our responsibilities. And it absolutely burns me. My name's Carl Hinder, and you're listening to the Salon Help Good to Go podcast, the podcast for salon spa and clinic owners who want to grow with more structure, more confidence, and better results. Righty guys, welcome to the Salon Help Good to Go podcast.
State of
Now,
the
today I
Industry
got Sam
with Sam Blake
with me.
Part
But let me tell
1.
you a little bit about Good to Go podcast. So the Good to Go podcast is all about you understanding that the standards in your business, the things you achieve, there is a level where you're good to go. Lots of people, including me, are looking for perfection in absolutely everything we do. And the podcast is all about saying sometimes that's going to hold us back. And in the earlier podcast, I actually explained to you how I spent and whole evening trying to put a lock on a door, which was perfectly good at 10 p.m. And at 4 a.m. in the morning, I was putting the lock on again to try and find perfection. And if we do that in our business, sometimes it gets in the way. Sam, thanks for joining me. Do you want to kind of tell these guys who you are, what you do, and why you're here?
Okay, so I'm a beauty therapist at my core and spa and holistic therapist who, over many decades, let's say, has had a career in industry. And I'm on my fourth, I think, yeah, my fourth kind of phoenix reincarnation, let's call it, within the industry. So, um, teaching for as long as I did, and working in corporate and independent and small salons like I did, both up to management level and everything else. Um, I came to a point in life where I went, what can I do to actually put back into the industry and what isn't being done? And I laugh now because I chose health and safety. I mean, how boring, how unsexy. You know, I'm going from like, yeah.
You definitely picked the most challenging subject, haven't you? Fair play. I
Oh
don't, I
look,
don't know
like
about, I don't know about
I'm the
boring or whatever, but challenging.
I'm the crazy, like when I was working in industry, if we were doing things like promos, you know, I'd be spray tanned in a, you know, Regent Street window in a great big store. And then I'd meditate and fall asleep. And I woke up and had like several, you know, 50 odd people taking photos of me. Just so what I do now doesn't even reflect my personality because it's that kind of suited, booted, stuffy, clipboard, hard hat. I'm telling you what you need to do. And that's not what health and safety is about me. So I spent some time doing consultancy. That's not me, right? You know, the kind of thing that you fall into when you go into this. And my ikigai and my heart is education, always has been, whether it was my clients or whether it was my students or my team. So what I do is I create safe spaces, but I'm kind of very much about changing because it's very much led by safe spaces to do with mental health and everything. That's one thing, one facet of the health linked to safety side that the Sager Salon Geek is actually about. So I am a geek. I go right to the nth degree with anything that I do. But the bottom line is, yes, I work with people to make their systems, documents, and all of the fluff stuff that needs to be there just in case something happens, or if somebody says, well, prove it. But it's more beyond that. I'm about person-centered health, safety, well-being, and welfare, and creating a workplace and teaching people how to put the boring but necessary into how we do things here.
I mean, you're really, really well known around the industry now, and you and I have known each other for a number of years. Your company, Safer Salon Geek. We don't forget, don't worry, guys. We'll get a contact out if you need to get hold of Sam on any of those fronts as we're going through. Let's start, Sam, with I wanted to start with this big umbrella thing about the industry. It drives me absolutely crazy when we talk about the salon or the hair and beauty industry. And I don't think, right? And I know that I always put myself out there. I don't think that as salon owners, we have a responsibility to the whole industry. And I think we hide behind things all the time. Right? This is kind of my bugbear. We say, "Oh, the industry's in a mess, therefore my salon, my business is in a mess." A- Are you kind of in line with that, or are you like, no, Carl? I think we should build this industry that really matters, or should we all just be
So
bloody getting on with it?
two facets to that.
Yeah,
My number one belief is you are in charge of your sphere of existence. So anybody, like the people that I learned from an industry. So there was a point in my career where I ran, brilliant little salon, and there was a company that went round buying up either salons that required improvement or multi-award winning. And I was just lucky that the sister salon was multi-award winning. So I'd been through the kind of whole, what does a good quality salon look like versus working in, I'm going to put the electrolysis needle in something and keep it and staple it to the client's record card. Lasted a day there, walked out. The state of the industry, I remember the shift and change recruiting, right? I remember half my bikini line and skin being ripped off by somebody who had an accredited course, and the way that the kind of shift and change happened. And we can't go back from that. We can't go anywhere near back with regulatory reform or anything to the state of where it is now. So for me, you as a salon owner, if I was back salon salon managing or owning, I'd be all about, well, how are we creating our standards? What are we doing to put ourselves within the marketplace, within our community, as the place to go? Second to that, if you're a campaigner, if you're a bit militant, if you want to get involved in all of that, I'm kind of fill your boots. So I kind of sit in this floating thing where if that's you, I will signpost you to everything that I can for you to try and make a difference in the industry. Notice I use the word try. I feel that we're at the start of that journey, not at the end of that journey with that.
Do you think, right? Just go back to that point one a little bit, so we're going to overlap. Do you think we were? And I hate this industry thing, but we've got to talk about it. Do we were a better industry 20 years ago, or do you think it was more stable 20 years ago? It's because we didn't have so many treatments, so much invasive stuff. So,
Yeah,
do you think it was a much simpler process, therefore it was much more stable? And
yeah.
whatever we are going to call it today, laws, regulations, do you think that because they haven't kept up with the pace that we've in some way deteriorated? Is that kind of a summary, do
Yeah,
you think?
I think absolutely, from kind of the whole insurance system underwriting stuff and the way that that whole system works with, the choice that we've got in the majority where people are directed for insurance is non-advisory. So that's one facet to it. The other facet to it is anybody accrediting, anything because you can, because there's no regulation. And that becomes about morals, ethics, and the way that you run your business and I believe who you are as a person. If you're there to flip a quick buck and you don't care, that those people are never going to go away, are they? In every aspect of every industry, there's always people who are just not going to do their best. And I personally believe that you put your what am I trying to say here? You put your mindset into the frame of that's okay, that's going on, but what do I do? How do I train my staff? As a solo, how do I train myself? What does quality look like in my world? So all of that spin going on, it will change slowly. Health and Care Act's coming in. when everybody's stopped the kind of medic, non-medic argument that I would presume is going on behind closed doors. My hope for that, and bear in mind, you know, I was a purist, right? When we first met, I was still teaching, and I was, we need regulation. Doing the health and safety training that I've done, having conversations with my other industry, who are the people on the street, who are the people prosecuting, investigating, first job there is always support. The kind of catch up with what's high risk now wasn't high risk way back when. Take the gel polish thing, for example, import, talking to trading standards. It's such a big thing that it's going to take years and changes and slight changes for anything to get back to a place of balance and quality.
But if you just think about the whole industry in terms of business now, not necessarily any regulation to do with services, there's already, I don't know how many laws around anything.
Well, you've got the
paying
Health
your
and Safety at Work Act. You have
Well,
the
not even
Health and Safety at Work Act.
Yeah, but I'm talking much more broader. We have so many
Right.
laws already in place, right? For VAT, right? Paying your taxes, paying the minimum wage, right? Before we get to regulation, before we get to health and safety, before we get to trading standards, and almost none of those things are enforced and are only enforced by default. You know what I mean? Like when it goes really wrong, yeah, then is a
And
court
that's
case.
the point, Carl, when it goes really wrong, because
Really wrong. Yeah.
It's that I would love to
So if
see
you're a salon, if you're a
licensing.
salon owner, if
Yeah.
you're a salon owner and you know, right, that, and again, you did mention, you give me the answer already, right? This is about morals as well, right? But in terms of legislation or in terms of being held accountable, if you're looking around people's businesses and you say nothing ever gets enforced, no matter what regulations hit me over the next 5 years, I'll just cruise on as I am. Do you think that's going to happen, or do you think actually, Carl, we're a bit more responsible than that?
I think we're a bit more responsible than that, I would hope. But then it depends what part of the sector, in whatever country you're in, there's always going to be the people who want to flip a fast book and go and do a one-day course because it's pocket money for the weekend and they're running a hobby business, versus the people who, like how I was, I fell into business because of the job roles that I had as an employee, was lucky to have training. That's very rare. So then you go on to the accidental business owner, that if you don't know what you don't know, how getting back to, and it is my opinion, the new act that's coming in with the aesthetic side of life, the Health and Care Act, my wish, and it is a wish, it's not what I think is going to happen, but my wish is that the powers in the council side, where they're deregulating, and that's the key thing, the risk of service that we're doing now, you're right, doesn't marry up to what I was doing when I was working. You know, the most technical thing I was doing was KC and advanced electrolysis, right? That was the highest risk factor. When you're looking at law, legislation, acts, whether that's cosmetic, whatever it is, hasn't kept up with the pace of the scientific and technological developments in the sector. That's where risk assessment and being a competent risk assessor in your business, whether you're a manager or the owner, comes to the fore. That if you know how to make your services safe, or as safe as possible with your customer journey, with the fact of not leaving your consultation out, my massive bugbear, and that's with both hats on, the sales I could spin through doing that good customer journey, my white space, right? So that side of me professionally frustrates the hell out of me. That, and yes, I think differently, right? I'm aware of that. So a lot of people are going to be sitting here going, how does health and safety marry up with my bottom line? Oh, trust me, it does. You've only got to look at how corporate companies outside of our sector leverage the whole encompassment of safe space, methodology, from recruitment right the way through to staff development. So it's a facet within the business. My wish for the industry is that the powers sit there with their cups of coffee at the table on the local councils and go, okay, back in the 80s, we went, massage parlours, we need to do something about that. Oh, let's add manicure, let's kind of go there in the UK. somebody had that thought, let's add manicure into that. They're using sharps and they're massaging hands. Random, but there we go. That actually, and the next step with the injectables and anything that pierce the skin and everything else, there's still a gap there. There's a gap that could be filled where, yes, endpoint users got the cost, but you can't have regulation without a cost. It's just not going to happen. So a very simple, and it is a simplistic ideology of mine, that with the shift that's changing in the UK on that front with the deregulation, they need to bring money in. So the new act finally gets enacted. Somebody somewhere has actually had this thought process that we could up level the licensing. We've got self-regulation if people want to opt into that, or just be in their own sphere of existence and quality and assure themselves by doing best practice, doing good practice. And it's a very kind of antiquated kind of viewpoint and very big, but I don't think regulatory reform is just one thing, because how can I say politely, people who I've had a conversation with because of their politics, let's say, well, I'm not going to join that association. I haven't elected them. Why am I going to give them my money? And that exists, you know, within society. So there's never going to be the self-regulation unless there's a compulsory register. That's been tried how many times, Carl?
Well, I mean, I've not told anyone this before, but you guys on podcast are going to find out. I've been a member of federations and associations for as long as I've been in this industry, and some of them connected to registration. I've left recently. Yeah, I've deliberately left the forums, the formats. I'm paying my membership because it's a talking shop. All right. There is no progress, and we are distracting. This is my personal point as a business coach.
Distraction, yeah.
We are
Yeah.
we're distracting. No, I'm not saying they don't have a role, and that if we would head in that direction, but it's very flimsy, very feeble. But what I see, you see, the thing I have to deal with every day, I don't have to, I love dealing with it. The thing I have to deal with every day is salon owners who have got a responsibility to themselves, their families, and their teams. All right. And when we look at industry and we blame regulatory bodies or the government or a
Yeah.
federation or anything like that, we're distracted from our responsibilities. And it absolutely burns me, for want of a better word, right? It really, I'm very, very frustrated for them that they are allowing those distractions. So some of those organizations that you and I are talking about tongue in cheek on here, I've moved away from, because I actually think they're creating a distraction and a very, very negative framework for business owners who could do better. And it's a shame they're not being pulled into it in a much, much different way.
It's an interesting viewpoint.
You know, it's not. I mean, I have been engrossed in this industry for as long as I can remember. You know what I mean? I've been involved. I've been the president of the NHBF in Wales. I've been the secretary. I've given up hundreds, if not thousands, of hours voluntarily to the industry. I'm not selfish about how I contribute and change things, but at the end of the day, we have to take responsibility for ourselves. And
Totally
that
agree.
comes down to a single salon owner, hair or beauty, any country, where we say, I have this team and I have to look after them at all sorts of level. I have to look after their general well-being. We've got to look after their moral well-being. We've got to look after their health and safety. We've got to look after their careers, because the more
Financial, their
financial, the more
financial
invested,
well-being.
yeah, the more invested we are, both financially and emotionally, at the right level. I got to take that word emotionally out of salons, because we just fall in love with our staff and never get them to do anything. But the better, yeah, we're close to our staff in the wrong ways. So, and I think we'll touch on this. I think we should talk about it in a minute. Um, you mentioned it just now. Your phrase, accidental salon owner or business owners, and we'll
Accidental
touch on
business
that in a
owners.
moment. Yeah,
Yeah.
because we that is this is how all this happens, and it's self-perpetuating. We end up with the wrong people in the wrong places all the time, because we're recycling this. Yeah, so I just kind of like spinning that out there. it's a very frustrating thing to see individual businesses looking towards an industry that generally isn't there, but damaging their own business along the way. And so I've
Well,
been
it
retracting
goes it
from some
goes
of these
back to
organizations.
risk assessment, doesn't it? When you talk about risk assessment in industry to industry people, if they've not worked in the type of environments that you and I have, they're not going to look at business threat and look at the financial threat. You say risk assessment, everybody's head goes to, oh yeah, the tick list health and safety that I did on my course.
Yeah.
You know, so that's kind of a reframing that I know you and I are on the very, very much the same page about. That's one part of your business threat. So if you don't learn the business skills, if you don't learn the negotiation skills, the people skills, if it's something that you haven't got, the functional skills, God help us all, taking functional skills, maths and English out of apprenticeships, my educator head shuddered. I used to teach key skills and embed it into the beauty curriculum at one of the colleges that I worked at, was in charge of it in effect. So I know the value of when you get naturally the kids who are attracted to our industry, and the way that I'm going to call it bias from schools, how people are manoeuvred into our industry. And that's the other fear factor from the level of service and where particularly beauty goes. How
Industry,
do we attract
right?
kids?
Oh, let's not just do kids now, right? Because let's attract 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds, right? How do we
Yeah.
attract people? I mean, generally kids in the education, secondary school system, etc., has a big part to play in this. How, how do I, right, genuinely go to my children and say, there's a great career opportunity in this salon, spa, or clinic, right? And you should go there because of what? What could I genuinely? And I'm not talking about individuals. Honest to God, I have amazing clients. I have some amazing salons, and if I could just say it was one particular spa or clinic, but I'm talking about the plethora of salons that we see in our high streets and towns and villages. What could I genuinely say to some 16-year-old? Go and join this organization because it's going to give you what?
You can't say a damn thing. You've got to show them. You've got to you've got to put, so all of the other effort that goes elsewhere. What I'd love to see is people engaging with careers days and things like that within the local school. So good example, my daughter's school. We go up there. There's one apprenticeship company. There's not one local salon there who would inspire, this is what we do, this is how we train, look at these brilliant things we've done, we've got in frauds. There's none of that. It was, the kind of whole marketing of the apprenticeship there. I kind of went, oh, and my daughter went, well, that's disappointing. She said, that doesn't show the flavours of your industry, does it? And it's even down to that side of it, of what they're being presented with at grassroots level. So I'd love there to be more engagement. I'd love people to take back work experience. And I know that, and it comes back round circle to the bias of who gets sent even. But I think if you don't educate the educators and the education system into the amazing stuff within the industry, doesn't matter what you say, it's about what you do. So you get that group of people in the palm of your hand and you're telling them about your experiences and everything else. You sell yourself, don't you? People buy people. And if you're going, oh, it's a great career and this is hairdressing and you learn this, that's not actually giving real world experience. So one of the things that I think lacks with, let's call them the powers, is that side of the marketing not being pumped out and sent to schools, or that environment to say this is a brilliant career and this is a brilliant career, and look at the spectrum. The only people who've kind of touched on that I've seen is the British Beauty Council, but that was all STEM based. That was all and it just kind of like, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, you can do your cosmetic chemistry and all of that and get the academic route, but you can go on a cruise liner. I know friends who went on cruise liners for like 4 years and came back and bought a flat, outright. There's not enough of that aspirational side to the industry.
Absolutely. And you know what? So I'm sat, thinking, there's tiers of salon, spas, and clinics. And, I know people on 40, 50, 60,000 a year, More than
Yeah.
teachers are on, more than police officers are on in our hair and beauty industry. They are in the minority, but they are businesses that have, created really, really good businesses. But we don't hear, the careers officers or the teachers. My children are just coming out of their secondary education. Not one person has ever spoken to them about a pathway in lots of industries, by the way, but a pathway like that. I was listening to someone the other day, USA business coach, and they said if you want to be a millionaire, now you should become a plumber, right?
Yeah.
And I think they meant tradesperson, right? And it's right. Okay, you want to be a
That's because
millionaire
the
now,
lack. That's because the lack and what you can charge, isn't it? Because the scarcity.
right? Okay, well then that's where our industry splits. Okay, because we have got people or businesses that are paying you really, really well for the work you do. I know
Yeah.
businesses that you do have a career where you are on photo shoots, where you are at award dinners, where you are traveling overseas, where you are on cruise ships, right? And other people, and this is the problem end, okay, where we pay them the minimum wage or less, where we give them no training or less, where we don't look after them, we don't talk to them, we don't coach, cajole anything out of these people, and we destroy the bottom end of the industry.
Yeah.
And and there is the
And that's
contrast,
in
and it's
part why people end up going into collaborative working spaces or renting the nail bar and going down that route. A, for the autonomy and the control over their lifestyle and their choice of time, but also because I just don't think it's just sold like it used to. I can remember sitting in talks at college and having Steiner come in and just going, wow, and having Weller come in, because I also, God help me, did hairdressing as well. I can blow dry, that's about it. You want an isometric cut, I can do that, but we didn't mean to, type of thing. Yeah, and just sitting there listening to Weller, and just that kind of, okay, if I work in a salon for X, and this was my mindset, if I work in a salon for X amount of years, I could do that. That's amazing. There's not even that type of engagement across the country. Then let's talk about people who are within the job centres, who have never kind of quite known what they wanted to do, but have got amazing people skills because they've been working behind a bar for the past X amount of years. Who's actually selling what we do to them as a way to kind of jump from retail, let's say, or hospitality, into something that's perhaps got a little bit more diversity and longevity? Don't know, just to throw that one in there as a
yeah.
thought.
Well, look, there's one here. I'm really let's do no, let's do that accidental owner, and then I got a big one for
Yeah.
you, right?
Okay.
So the accidental owner, okay, or the accidental business owner. I mean that's self-explanatory, but we'll talk that through in a moment. I've got this thing, and this is years and years and years going back now. 25. I can't remember how long ago I started my salons, but it was a long time ago. I was that salon owner going into schools, right? I used to go and do presentations. I used to teach a course in schools on business, right? But linked to my industry or linked to our industry. It was my industry at the time, linked to our industry. And I wanted to know why we didn't stipulate a minimum academic entry into our industry, right? And there's all sorts of reasons. And this is not about creative capability, right? This is about in the long term. We know that a significant amount of people who come into the industry at 15, 16 end up as salon business owners. All
Mm-hmm.
right. And of course, this is the accidental bit. They never intended to. They come in and they practice all of their skills and they get really, really good at it. They get good at coloring and they get good at Botox and they get good at waxing. And one day, something, I'm going to call it silly and I'm going to offend all the dads out there, you know, a daughter goes to dad or son goes to dad. Hey, it's a really good opportunity. And he goes, oh, well, you've been training for 3 years. Here's 30 grand, go and open a salon, right? And so you find yourself, I call them hairdressers with a bunch of keys. That's what I call.
Yeah.
I don't even pay you guys enough respect to call you entrepreneurs. You're salon owners, you're hairdressers with a bunch of keys. And it's not your fault. You've turned up there, right? One day, worked really hard and
Mm-hmm.
done a great job of being a hairdresser or a technician. And you're standing there with your bunch of keys. And now, and this is the important part for me as a coach, you now have legal responsibilities as
Mhm.
an entrepreneur. You have been listening to the Salon Help Good to Go podcast. This episode is with Sam Blake as we discuss the state of the industry. You can catch us again on part 2 in the next episode. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Take a look in the show notes and pick up your link with Sam, and also let other salon, spa and clinic owners know that we are here every Sunday at 4 p.m. kickstarting their week. See you on the next episode.